The monitor's flatline screech still echoed in my skull when Alex leaned over Dad's body and said, "The Austin offices are mine. You take Miami." I stood frozen at the foot of the hospital bed, my father's hands still warm under mine, while Blake pulled out his phone and started texting their lawyers. The nurse hadn't even turned off the machines yet. Through the window, dawn was breaking over Houston, painting the sky the same gray as Dad's face. "We need to move fast," Alex muttered, scrolling through his contacts. "PR needs a statement by noon, and the board meeting's at 3. Blake nodded, already on a call. "Yeah, get the paperwork ready." "No, the Miami house goes to me. We discussed this." They were dividing an empire while our father's chest had stopped rising 30 seconds ago. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab them both and shake them until they remembered we were supposed to be grieving. Instead, I just stood there watching them negotiate over real estate and percentages like they were at a business lunch instead of a deathbed. "What about the kid?" Blake finally glanced at me, phone still pressed to his ear. Alex shrugged. "He'll get something. A trust fund, maybe." Dad wouldn't leave him with nothing. That's when the nurse finally came in to disconnect the machines, and my brothers stepped into the hallway to keep making calls, their voices overlapping as they carved up our father's $29 million business before his body had even gone cold. I looked down at Dad's peaceful face, and for the first time since entering that room, I felt completely alone. 2 weeks later, I sat in a leather chair that cost more than my car, surrounded by mahogany paneling and the smell of old money in a Houston law office. The will reading felt like theater. Dad's attorney, Mr. Harrison, with his silver hair and expensive suit, sitting behind a massive desk while my brothers flanked me on either side like bookends. Alex had worn his best suit, the charcoal one Dad always said made him look presidential. Blake kept checking his Rolex, the one Dad gave him for his 30th birthday. I'd thrown on jeans and the only button-down I owned that didn't have coffee stains. "Let's begin," Mr. Harrison said, adjusting his reading glasses. The first 10 minutes were exactly what my brothers expected. Alex received the CEO position and 45% of company shares. His face remained carefully neutral, but I caught the satisfied glint in his eyes. Blake got his 45% plus the Coral Gables house, the white mansion with the infinity pool that overlooked the ocean. He actually smiled. Then Mr. Harrison paused, flipping to another page. "And to my youngest son," he read slowly, "I leave personal item 7 alpha. The room went silent. "That's it." Blake laughed, a sharp sound without humor. "Personal item 7 alpha? What the hell is that?" Mr. Harrison reached into a drawer and pulled out a small box. Inside was an iPhone, not even a new model, just a plain black device with a cracked screen protector. He slid it across the desk toward me. I picked it up, confused. The screen was locked with a biometric scanner I didn't recognize. "There's more," Mr. Harrison continued, his voice taking on a strange tone. "This device contains a countdown timer and biometric lock keyed specifically to the youngest son. Any attempt by an outsider to access its contents will immediately void the inheritance of both Alexander and Blake Montgomery." Alex shot forward in his chair. "What?" "Your father was very specific," Mr. Harrison said, pulling out another document. "If anyone other than his youngest son accesses this device, or if any attempt is made to force access through coercion or technology, both of your inheritances will be transferred to a backup beneficiary named in a sealed addendum." Blake's face had gone red. "This is insane. Dad wouldn't." "Your father was of sound mind when he drafted this will 6 months ago," Mr. Harrison interrupted. "I have 3 independent psychiatric evaluations confirming it. This clause is ironclad." I stared at the phone in my hands. It felt heavier than it should, like it was made of lead instead of glass and aluminum. When I pressed the power button, the screen lit up showing only a countdown timer. 157 days, 14 hours, 23 minutes. No explanation. No hint of what would happen when it reached 0. Can I try to unlock it?" I asked. "The biometric scanner will activate when the time is right," Mr. Harrison said. "Your father's instructions were explicit. You're to keep the device safe and secure. That's all." Alex stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. So that's it? Our entire inheritance hinges on whether this kid keeps a phone safe. What if he loses it? What if it gets stolen? Then I suggest you ensure nothing happens to your brother or his property, Mr. Harrison said calmly. The terms are non-negotiable. Any questions can be directed to my office, but I assure you, I have no additional information beyond what's in these documents. Blake grabbed my arm as we left the office, his fingers digging into my bicep. You're going to keep that phone locked in a safe. You understand me? Don't take it anywhere. Don't let anyone see it. Get off him, Alex snapped, but his eyes on me were just as hard. We need to figure out what Dad was thinking. There has to be something on that phone worth protecting. I pulled my arm free and walked to my truck, their voices following me across the parking lot. The phone burned in my pocket like a live coal. Whatever Dad had hidden on it, whatever message waited behind that countdown, my brothers suddenly cared a lot more about my well-being than they had in the hospital. But I couldn't shake the feeling that their concern had nothing to do with me and everything to do with that 45% each. I drove back to my Tampa duplex wondering what the hell Dad had been planning, and why he'd made me the keeper of a secret that could destroy my brother's fortunes with a single wrong move. The eviction notice came 3 weeks after the will reading. I was making instant ramen in my cramped kitchen when someone knocked. 3 sharp raps that made my stomach drop. Through the peephole, I saw a sheriff's deputy holding a clipboard and a manila envelope. "Eviction order," he said when I opened the door. "Property owner has terminated your lease. You have 72 hours to vacate." My hands shook as I took the papers. The duplex wasn't mine. It was owned by one of Dad's subsidiary companies, a company my brothers now controlled. "There must be a mistake," I said. "I've paid rent every month. Property's being sold. New owners don't want tenants." The deputy's expression was sympathetic but firm. 3 days, son. I'm sorry." The next morning, Alex showed up with 2 security guards I recognized from company headquarters. He didn't even look at me as he walked through my apartment, pointing at my laptop, my tablet, the old desktop computer Dad had given me for college applications. "Company property," he said. "All of it. That's my laptop. I bought it with money from your allowance, which came from company accounts." Alex finally met my eyes. "Everything purchased with company funds belongs to the company. That's basic contract law." One of the guards unplugged my laptop mid-charge, wrapping the cord around it with mechanical efficiency. They took my tablet from the nightstand. They even took the desktop, though I hadn't turned it on in months. "You can't do this," I said, but my voice came out weak. "We just did." Blake appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "And here's some advice, little brother, sell the phone. I know people who'd pay 6 figures for whatever Dad hid on it. Take the money, start over somewhere else, and stop being a liability to this family." "I'm not selling it." Blake's laugh was ugly. "Then enjoy being homeless, because that's what you are now. No family, no money, no roof. Just a stubborn kid with a locked phone and delusions about Dad caring." They left me standing in my half-empty apartment. 3 days later, I loaded everything I owned into Dad's old pickup. The one thing they couldn't claim as company property because the title was in my name. Clothes, books, the phone hidden in a zippered pocket inside my jacket. That was it. That was everything I had left of 18 years. I slept in the truck that first week, parked behind a 24-hour grocery store where the security guards didn't hassle me. I showered at Planet Fitness using a $10 monthly membership. I ate $1 menu burgers and whatever protein bars were on sale. The coffee shop hired me on a Wednesday. Roadside place off I-75, the kind where truckers stopped for weak coffee and stale donuts. $6 an hour plus tips that barely covered gas. The owner, Maria, didn't ask questions when I listed the gym's address on my application. "You got a phone?" she asked. I pulled out the iPhone, still locked, still counting down. 134 days now. "Good enough. You start tomorrow at 5 a.m. Word got around about the phone somehow. Maybe Blake put out feelers, maybe someone from the law office talked. A hacker contacted me through Facebook, offering $50,000 just to examine it. I met him at a Starbucks. 20-something kid with bleached hair and confidence that evaporated the moment he looked at the device. "That's not standard encryption," he muttered, running some kind of scanner over it. "That's military grade, maybe better. Custom biometric lock I've never seen before. Whoever built this didn't want anyone getting in. Can you crack it?" He handed it back like it was radioactive. "Not without destroying what's inside. Maybe not even then. Sorry, man. I tried a cryptography professor at University of South Florida next." Dr. Patel spent 3 hours examining the phone in her lab, running tests, analyzing the security architecture. "Extraordinary," she finally said. "The protection layers are beyond anything I've encountered in 20 years of research. Government-level security, possibly custom-designed. And this countdown. It's hardwired into the system in a way that makes tampering impossible without triggering a complete data wipe. So there's no way in? Not until whoever programmed this wants you in." She looked at me with something like pity. "Whatever your father hid here, he made absolutely certain no one but you could access it. The question is why." I walked back to my truck as the sun set over Tampa, the phone heavy in my pocket, 132 days still ticking away. My brothers had everything: the company, the houses, the money, the respect. They'd stripped me of family, home, and dignity, but they couldn't touch this phone. And somehow, that felt like the only victory I had left. That I woke up in the truck on my 18th birthday to the sound of rain hammering the roof. 5:45 a.m. My shift at the coffee shop started at 6, but something made me check the phone first. The countdown had 15 minutes left. My heart slammed against my ribs. For months, I'd watched those numbers tick down. Days becoming hours, hours becoming minutes. I'd imagined this moment 1,000 times, but now that it was here, my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the device. I sat up, wiping condensation off the windshield. The parking lot was empty except for a semi-truck on the far side. Rain blurred the streetlights into orange smears. 10 minutes. I thought about calling someone. But who? My brothers wouldn't answer. Maria from the coffee shop would think I was crazy. Dr. Patel might be interested from an academic standpoint, but what could she do? 5 minutes. The phone was warm in my hands now, warmer than it should be. The screen glowed brighter. The countdown numbers turned from white to gold. 1 minute. Couldn't breathe. Whatever Dad had planned, whatever secret he'd locked away, I was about to find out if I'd wasted 6 months protecting a device that might contain nothing but a cruel joke. 30 seconds. The rain suddenly stopped. Not slowed. Stopped completely, like someone had turned off a faucet. Through the windshield, I saw the sky beginning to lighten. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7. I pressed the phone against my chest, feeling my heartbeat sync with the countdown. 3, 2, 1. The timer vanished. The screen went black for 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. Then it lit up with a biometric scanner, the same one that had been locked all this time. I pressed my thumb against it without thinking. Chimed softly. Dad's voice filled the truck's cabin. So clear and strong it was like he was sitting in the passenger seat. "Hey, kiddo. If you're hearing this, you held on. I knew you would. Your brothers, they're good men, but they see the world through spreadsheets and profit margins. You see it through people. That's why you get this." My eyes burned. I hadn't cried since the hospital, but hearing his voice again broke something loose in my chest. "What comes next won't be easy," Dad continued. "You're going to discover things about me, about our family business, that will challenge everything you thought you knew. But I need you to trust me one more time. Can you do that?" The screen changed, showing a map with a red pin dropped on a location. Port Everglades, Florida. Sublevel S2, Bay 22. You'll need this access code. A string of numbers and letters appeared below the map. You have 72 hours from the moment you hear this message. After that, everything transfers to the backup beneficiary, and this opportunity is gone forever. Port Everglades was 2 hours south. I could make it before my shift started if I left now. "I'm sorry I couldn't tell you this while I was alive." Dad's voice softened. "I'm sorry for how your brothers treated you. I'm sorry for every moment you doubted yourself or thought I didn't care. But son, Everything I did was to prepare you for this. The real game begins now. Don't let me down. The message ended. The screen now showed the countdown again, but this time it read 71 hours, 58 minutes, and 34 seconds. 72 hours, ticking backward. I started the truck, hands still shaking but steadier now. The coffee shop could survive one morning without me. Maria would understand or she wouldn't. Either way, I was done living small. As I pulled onto I-75 heading south, the sun broke through the clouds, painting the wet road gold. The phone sat in the cup holder, its screen displaying the coordinates like a compass pointing toward whatever truth Dad had been hiding. Bay 22, sublevel S2. I repeated it like a prayer, like a promise. Whatever waited for me at Port Everglades, whatever secret Dad had protected with military-grade encryption and a 6-month countdown, I was about to find out if losing everything had been worth it. The backup beneficiary, whoever they were, would have to wait. This inheritance was mine, and I was 71 hours and 56 minutes away from understanding why Dad had bet everything on me. I pressed harder on the accelerator, the old pickup's engine roaring as I raced toward the coast and whatever truth was waiting in the dark beneath the docks. Port Everglades looked nothing like I expected. I'd imagined something dramatic. Hidden doors, suspicious characters, maybe armed guards. Instead, I found myself staring at a chain-link fence surrounding what looked like abandoned shipping containers stacked 3 high, rusted and covered in faded logos from companies that probably didn't exist anymore. Bay 22 wasn't even marked. I had to count from the entrance, walking along a cracked asphalt path where weeds pushed through every gap. The morning sun was already brutal, and sweat soaked through my shirt as I reached what should have been the right location. Just more containers. No sublevel. No entrance. Nothing. I checked the phone again. The coordinates were exact. I was standing in the right place, but there was nothing here except industrial decay and the smell of salt water mixed with diesel fuel. Then I noticed the container nearest me had a number painted on its side. S2-22. So faded I'd almost missed it. I walked around it, looking for a door, a hatch, anything. The backside had a standard container lock, the kind you'd need bolt cutters to open. But when I entered the access code from the phone into a keypad I hadn't noticed, hidden under a rust-colored plate that swung aside, the entire container shuddered. Not a container. An elevator. The floor dropped smoothly, descending into darkness until fluorescent lights flickered on, revealing polished concrete walls and the hum of ventilation systems. When the doors opened, I stepped into a space that looked like it belonged in a tech company, not buried beneath an abandoned port terminal. A man was waiting, 50s military posture, wearing casual clothes that didn't match the hardness in his eyes. "You made it with 68 hours to spare," he said. "Your father would be proud. I'm Mitchell, North America Operations Lead." "Operations for what?" He smiled. "Follow me." The corridor opened into a warehouse that stretched the length of a football field. But instead of typical cargo, I saw medical supplies stacked in organized rows, pallets of water filtration systems, boxes labeled in Arabic and Spanish and languages I didn't recognize. A dozen people worked at computer stations along one wall, coordinating shipments on screens showing maps of refugee camps and disaster zones. "Your father's real business," Mitchell said. "The logistics company everyone knows about? That's the cover. This is what he actually built. A humanitarian network that moves medicine, supplies, and hope through borders that official channels can't cross or won't touch." I couldn't speak. I just stared at the organized chaos, at workers loading a container with pediatric medical kits marked for Syrian refugee camps. Mitchell led me to a secured office. Inside, a laptop waited on a desk, already powered on. When I touched the fingerprint scanner, it opened to reveal financial accounts that made my head spin. $400 million across charitable foundations and shell companies designed to protect the money from government seizure. Contact lists showing senators, ambassadors, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Shipment manifests for loss-making routes that my brothers had complained about for years. Every single one going to disaster zones or refugee camps. "Those excess staff your brothers wanted to cut?" Mitchell said. "Field operatives coordinating medical corridors through war zones. Those warehouse expansions they called wasteful? Distribution centers for emergency supplies. Your father built an empire that makes money so it could save lives. He always said the best business is the one that does good while doing well. I sank into the chair, overwhelmed. Why me? Why not Alex or Blake? Because they never questioned the profit margins. They never asked where the money went or why certain routes stayed open despite losing money on paper. You did. Your father said you were the only one who ever asked him why we kept shipping to places that couldn't pay. I remembered that conversation. I'd been 14, looking at a quarterly report I didn't understand, asking Dad why we delivered to Haiti after the earthquake when they couldn't afford our rates. He'd smiled and said, "Because some things matter more than money, son. Remember that." "There's more," Mitchell said, pulling up another file. "Your father had 45% of the company parked in mirror entities, subsidiaries hidden in the corporate structure. They auto-transfer to you today, on your 18th birthday. Combined with 10% from a time trust that also activates today, you now control 55% of Montgomery Logistics." The words didn't make sense at first. Then they did, and I couldn't breathe. I have majority control? Your brothers have 45% each of the public company. You have 55% of everything, including the real operation. And there's one more thing you should know about the backup beneficiary. He pulled up a photo. Our housekeeper, Mrs. Chun. The woman who'd made my lunch every day for 10 years, who'd asked about my homework and remembered my birthday when my brothers forgot. She's been coordinating medical corridor operations in Southeast Asia for 15 years, Mitchell said. If you'd missed the deadline or given up, everything would have transferred to her. Your father always had a backup plan to keep this network running. I looked at the screens showing shipments moving across the globe, at the warehouse full of supplies that would save lives, at the coordinates updating in real time as our people moved through dangerous territory to deliver hope. Dad hadn't left me nothing. He'd left me everything that mattered. The emergency board meeting happened in a glass-walled conference room in our New Jersey headquarters. I'd never been to this building before. My brothers had made sure of that. Now I walked in wearing the only suit I owned, a cheap one from an outlet mall that didn't quite fit, carrying a briefcase Mitchell had given me filled with legal documents that would change everything. Alex sat at the head of the table, Blake to his right. 12 board members filled the other seats. Old men in expensive suits who'd worked with Dad for decades. They barely looked at me when I entered. "This better be important," Alex said, checking his watch. "We have investors calling in 20 minutes. I set the briefcase on the table and pulled out the first document. Legal transfer of ownership shares, effective immediately. 45% from Montgomery Holdings subsidiary, 10% from the Gerald Montgomery Memorial Trust. Both transfer to me as of my 18th birthday, which was yesterday." The room went silent. Blake grabbed the papers, his face going white as he read. "This is impossible," he said. "Dad wouldn't." "Dad did." I pulled out more documents. Corporate structure analysis showing mirror entities established 8 years ago. Financial records proving the trust was set up when I was 10. And here, I slid a legal opinion across the table. 3 different law firms confirming the transfers are binding and irreversible. Alex stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. "You're trying to steal our company with fake documents." "Sit down, Alex." One of the board members, Mr. Patterson, spoke for the first time. He was the oldest person in the room, someone Dad had trusted for 30 years. "I helped Gerald set up those entities. Every word of this is legitimate." The color drained from Alex's face. 55%, Blake said quietly, still staring at the papers. "You have majority control. Yes, you could fire us, dissolve the board, take everything." I looked at my brothers, really looked at them. Alex's expression had shifted from anger to fear. Blake's hands were shaking. These were the same men who'd divided Dad's empire while he was dying, who'd evicted me and taken my possessions, who'd called me a liability and told me I wasn't family. Part of me wanted to destroy them the way they'd tried to destroy me. But that wasn't what Dad had built this for. "I'm not firing anyone," I said. "Alex, you're good at operations. The legitimate business runs smoothly because of your management. Blake, you understand public relations and investor confidence. The company needs both of you. Alex sat back down slowly. Then what do you want? Changes. Starting now. I pulled out the next set of documents. 15% of annual profits get redirected to humanitarian logistics. Those loss-making routes you've been trying to cut, they stay open. They're the most important part of what we do. That's insane, Blake said. Shareholders will revolt. We're a private company. The shareholders are us and Dad's trust beneficiaries, who all support this. I slid photos across the table. These are from our operations in Jordan. Pediatric clinic we supplied last month. 300 kids got vaccinated because our trucks moved medicine through borders where NGOs couldn't operate. The photos showed children's faces, grateful doctors, supplies bearing our company logo. And these 17 warehouse workers you wanted to terminate for low productivity? I continued. They're being promoted to management positions. They're not warehouse workers. They're field coordinators for humanitarian operations. They report to Mitchell Hayes, who runs our covert logistics network. Mr. Patterson was nodding. Gerald always said the real measure of success was lives saved, not dollars earned. I pulled out the final document. This restructures the board to include 3 humanitarian oversight positions. All major operational decisions require their approval. We're still a logistics company. We'll still make money, but we're going to do it while making the world better. Alex and Blake exchanged glances. I could see them calculating, measuring what they'd lost against what they still had. And if we refuse? Alex asked. Then I exercise majority control, remove you from executive positions, and implement these changes anyway. But I'd rather have you on board. You're my brothers. Dad wanted us to work together, just with different priorities than you thought. Blake picked up one of the photos from Jordan. A little girl holding a vaccination card, smiling at the camera. He talked to me once about this, Blake said quietly. Years ago. Asked me what I'd do if I could help people and make money at the same time. I told him it was naive thinking. He just nodded and changed the subject. He was testing us, Alex said. He looked at me differently now, not with the contempt from before, but something closer to respect. You passed. We didn't. It's not too late, I said. The vote was unanimous. Every board member approved the restructuring. Alex and Blake abstained but didn't oppose. As the meeting ended and people filed out, Alex stopped me at the door. I'm sorry, he said. For the hospital. For the eviction. For everything. Blake nodded. We were wrong. About you. About what mattered. They left before I could respond, but their words hung in the air like a promise that maybe, someday we could actually be brothers again. A year later, I stood in the same conference room watching footage from that Jordan pediatric clinic. The doctor on screen was explaining how our supply network had reached 5 camps across 3 countries, how mortality rates had dropped 40% since we'd established consistent medicine deliveries. Alex sat beside me taking notes. Blake was on a call with an ambassador, negotiating access to a Syrian border crossing. The change hadn't happened overnight. It had taken months of difficult conversations, budget restructuring, and convincing skeptical board members that profit and purpose could coexist. But it had happened. My phone buzzed, the same iPhone that had started everything. The countdown was gone, replaced by a simple interface that Mitchell had built. A new coordinate appeared on the screen, this time in Venezuela. Medical supplies needed. Government blockades preventing official aid. Our network could get through. We have a mission, I said. Alex looked up from his notes. What do we need? Antibiotics, water filters, basic surgical supplies. 2 tons minimum. I'll have it ready in 6 hours, Blake said, ending his call. We have a route through Colombia that's clean. This was normal now. Emergency requests coming in, my brothers mobilizing resources without hesitation. The company was more profitable than ever. Turned out investors liked supporting a business that made headlines for saving lives instead of just maximizing shareholder returns. Mrs. Chun stopped by the office that afternoon with lunch she'd made, still taking care of me like she always had. She never mentioned being the backup beneficiary, but I caught her smiling when she saw the mission board showing active humanitarian operations across 4 continents. That evening, I drove the old pickup back to Tampa. I'd kept it even after moving into a better apartment, even after I could afford something newer. It reminded me of where I'd been, what I'd survived, and why Dad's plan had mattered. The phone pinged again. Another mission. Another chance to save lives. I typed a quick response to Mitchell. Approved. Deploy immediately. Dad's voice echoed in my memory. The real game begins now. He'd been right. This was the game. Not corporate power or inheritance fights, but the quiet work of moving supplies through impossible places, of choosing compassion over profit margins, of proving that success meant something more than numbers on a balance sheet. The phone's screen glowed softly in the darkening truck cab, coordinates updating as our teams moved across the world, always pointing where a life could be saved. And I followed every single one.